welcome to the WIHS Journal. On the broadcast with us today, we'll be talking to Deanna Danielle. And today's broadcast, we'll be talking about her newest book called Shelley, A Shepherd and His Sheep. On the phone line with me today, Deanna joined me from her hometown in New York, as she'll be sharing all the details. Just maybe give us a little, recap on your ministry.
We actually started a group called the Care Coalition, and we started it in the community because we had recognized that so many of the kids were just dealing with drugs, and we lost a lot of our friends' children. We ended up starting an organization called the Care Coalition. It's been really great. We hope to bring a lot of hope, awareness, and support and connect those in need with those who care. That's been one. And we've also actually been writing a few scripts, and it's been really exciting just doing different things for the Lord, just feeling where He's kind of leading me in the direction, I think, as John had said it, and, quoting the words of Isaiah, I'm a voice of one calling in the wilderness, make straight a way for the Lord, just seeking God and seeking the direction that He has for us to go in.
And I know that you're a prolific writer. You have written many books in the past that we talked about. Today, we'll be talking about your newest children's book, which is called Shelley. What inspired you to write this book?
Yeah, thank you so much. First, it's with an overflowing abundance that I yearn to share God's incredible love and grace and truth, And with that being said, I had heard a pastor preach on how shepherds in ancient Israel would break the leg of the sheep that kept on wandering away. While the sheep's leg was healing, the shepherd would nurture it back to health and carry it close to its heart. In the process, the sheep would come to know and trust their shepherd. Before I realized that this, of course, was not true, shepherds in Israel did not break the legs of their sheep. I had already written the first draft, and several illustrations for the book were completed. And in conclusion, it was really just hearing that story that was the grounds that inspired me to write Shelley. It was just a stepping stone in sharing the ultimate powerful truth that God is with us always in all circumstances, and just waiting for us to turn to Him to receive His healing balm, no matter what the conditions of our lives may be.
For listeners who don't know, it's a beautiful hardcover illustrated book. It's Shelley, Shepherd and His Sheep, and you see this beautiful boy with all these little sheep around. So tell us a little bit more about the book.
Yeah. Well, Shelley is a story of a faithful sheep who cannot understand why her shepherd has put her in the back of the fold. As she notices and starts to help the other sheep around her, she forgets her own worries and realizes their greater purpose. It is an inspirational children's book for kids of every age, adults included, the prayers of parents reading it, that they too will be spoken to. Shelley is really a book that's meant to encourage and inspire young minds to seek what is good, leaving them hopeful and confident about the future, and helping them to understand themselves and the world around them. And I believe, too, us as adults, because we're really just kids getting older.
In doing this book, what would you think surprised you the most?
Well, that it would take 17 years from the time that I started to finally have all the illustrations completed. And it was in autumn. That was in autumn of 2021. And, it's when the time was right, that I think that everything happened. And it was pretty amazing. My daughter was on her way home from work, actually, and she had said to me, Mom, I think you really need to have that book completed by Easter. And so after 17 years, I had to do everything within the week, because once I had contacted the self-publishing illustrators, I just needed to have everything done right away. So it went from 17 years to a week to have everything put together.
And how did you find the illustrator for Shelley?
Well, my friend who had illustrated my first book, Christmas Morn, she didn't feel that Shelley was right for her, so she recommended a friend of hers who illustrated Max Lucado's bestseller, Just in Case You Ever Wonder. And that was all that I needed to know. Max was one of my favorite authors.
Yes.
How could I look any further? So I was grateful to have her.
So the person who does Max Lucado's books actually illustrated your book.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
Awesome. That's why it is so awesome. I love to hear stuff like that. And tell us about the name Shelley. I know there's more significance about the name.
Yes, Shelley actually means mine in Hebrew. And I had, prior to writing Shelley, I had written a screenplay called Blessed. And it was written a little bit, I used a bit of Hebrew while writing that. And with that being said, I remember that there was this word beautiful that I wanted to use. And so I went to find that word, and I ended up thinking that that word was actually Shelley, but didn't realize that when I took Shelley, that Shelley actually meant mine. Mm-hmm. And I just thought that, that's how God works. It's just so incredible how there could have been a more perfect title for the book than to call it mine.
Absolutely.
Meaning God, that we belong to Him.
Yes, we do. So if a mom is listening and they want something special for their children, how do you think a book like this would encourage a child from the age of, from 2 to 10? How would you feel it would encourage them in their own life?
Well, I would tell you just basically from reading the book to other children and seeing their responses to it is that they know more than we, I think, give them credit for. And I think that they are very much in tune with the love that God has for us. Very often, they will come to me and say, is the shepherd really Jesus? And that's their thoughts. Is this me, Shelley, being put in the back, or things that I'm going through? So sometimes I think that I'm going to share this with them, but they share more with me than I could have ever realized, and it's been such a blessing to listen to young children and see their responses to the book. And like I said, they know more than we give them credit for.
I always love to ask authors when publishing a book, when doing the book, when reading it and putting it all together, what is your favorite part of the book and why?
I think my favorite part of the book is actually when Shelley recognizes that there is so much going on around her, when she actually takes her eyes off of herself, because I truly think that's where the blessings come in our lives, is when we recognize all the things that are going on around us, and it just helps us to grow and to become all that it is, the best version of ourselves, all that God has created us to be.
How can our listeners purchase a copy of Shelley?
Well, they can actually visit DeannaDanielle.com, or they could go to ShelleyBooks.com, and either website will take them right to it.
I loved hearing the story about Shelley, and thank you so much for sending me this beautiful hard copy of Shelley. If, I really can't describe it as you would to our listeners, maybe you can kind of just describe the book itself, the illustrations, the outside. When they purchase this, you see something on a picture, maybe just an illustration of it.
Actually, the illustration, it started with my son. There was a picture of him that I loved. I have 4 children, and he's number 2 in line, and there was a picture of him coming in from playing soccer, and we actually used that picture to create the shepherd. And that's kind of how it started with, the illustrations. And through that, I hope that people will feel the warmth and the welcoming and truly be able to feel God's presence in the book. That would be my greatest hope, describing the illustrations, is that as they turn each page, that they could feel God's presence. And also, this didn't happen until the very end, right before I was ready to publish it, but I felt that each page needed a psalm on it, and that would be to connect what is being said with the living Word of God and what He is sharing with us, that He will never leave us nor forsake us, and that He is with us always, no matter what it is that we are going through.
What else would you like to convey to our listeners before we close today's broadcast?
Well, I'd like to thank you so much for tuning in, and it is my prayer that you can get your copy of Shelley and enjoy it and feel truly blessed and feel the presence of the Lord as I had every moment in putting it together.
Once again on the broadcast with us was Deanna Danielle, talking about her beautiful children's book that just came out called Shelley, A Shepherd and His Sheep. For more details, you can give us a call at 860-346-1049. I'm Anissa Porticelli for News and Public Affairs.